Good to go now? Okay. Awesome. Well, I'll get started. This will be the first time I've ever been on time for something. So, appreciate you guys all being here. So, up until this point, I think you guys have all, there's been some really neat things I've watched on Facebook just for the last 2 days. I know as part of the OAETA board of directors, this is one of the exciting things that we've, most exciting things we've done probably in the 17 years I've been teaching ag, is trying to get workshops led by teachers, successful teachers in our state to kind of strengthen our own, sharpen the saw, the old Franklin Covey kind of term. But anyway, Mark McPeak was in the shop all ago with me, and he said, I don't know how in the world you got your topic, but it's like spot on for you. And I'll be honest, I had a conversation with Rose last week. I feel like God put this topic in my repertoire to do, not necessarily to teach you guys stuff, but maybe to strengthen stuff for myself. Okay, and so while you guys may be getting something from this presentation today, my hope is that you'll get a little bit of insight to kind of me and kind of what an average ag teacher has to do with. And I know Mr. Cleaver was at Ag Ed Academy with us last week, and I didn't realize he had been teaching for 35 years. So I'm honored that he chose to kind of be in here to listen to this, because I think there's a lot of things that that all of us could probably take away from this as we get started. So, man, July, August, how many of you guys feel like this? How many of you feel like, hey, I'm your Huckleberry, I'm going to do these things? One of the first things that I always think about is like, I'm going to be a 3-star national chapter this week, and we're still working through that process. Everything's got to be done and submitted by 11:59 p.m. today. There's my plug for Rose. And by the way, there is a slide. We're going to try to figure out how many slides I'm going to have at the end of the day too. So anyway, but most challenges that we have as ag teachers, we generally put those on ourselves, right? And so some of those are dictated by the school district that you teach at. Some of those are by the students that you have the opportunity to lead. But a lot of pressures actually are things that we internalize, personalize, and then try to find ways to overcome those challenges throughout the year. I thought this was really a great meme there, are you tired? No, I'm exhausted. And this guy's laying next to an exhaust system on a car. He's got it all laid out there. So I don't think if you ever become an ag teacher, you'll ever feel like you're tired. You'll always feel like you're exhausted. You should always feel like you're exhausted if you're doing your job, okay? And we'll talk about some of those things along the way. And so I'm like, whose idea was it to show livestock anyway? What are nominations? I mean, there's so many things that we do in the 17 years that I've been teaching that we've changed the way we did originally. So we have had to come up with rules to be in place for people to not cheat at the livestock systems. Does that make sense? So that's more work that we've had to do. And if you guys will also think about like the Tulsa State Fair concept, and OAE's kind of done this as well, we're doing all the nomination and entry work for them. We're doing all the data entry for those guys, right? Essentially. And the thing I like about it is that if it's a mess up, it's a mess up on me. I can fix that real quick. If it's something that we send in and it's an issue through the mail or digitally or whatever, and there's a problem, then we're the ones that are going to have to fix it ultimately. It's going to come down to us putting our signature on something and doing those things. So I would say when I started teaching, the month of October and November was slow. I don't know that there is a slow month anymore. Is there, Mr. Cleaver? Maybe December. But, we've packed, MFE, ALD, because there's 2 different sessions on top of that, depending on where you're in the state, you can go. We've got, your regional, a lot of people are doing the regional legislative meals and things like that at that time. So we really don't have just a lot of extra free time throughout the day as we get there. So we get all the way to March, and it's like, oh man, I got CDEs and LDEs to worry about. So get through all the livestock stuff, and then Some of us do a really good job of along the way while we leave to go to an event. We're leaving, assignments for kids to do that are going to prepare them for their CDEs and LDEs. But we all know at the end of the day, those kids aren't going to work on those things anyway, or do them as effectively as if you're not going to be there. May and June, there's some light at the end of the tunnel, unless you're working on some applications. A common question I get is, does an ag teacher get a vacation? And that's no. The answer is no. And we're going to go into some detail about that in our life balance talk. Most of us don't do that, and it's not because we don't choose to. It's because we choose to be busier. As we go along throughout the year, there's things that we choose to do versus spending time with family or those kind of things. So we'll get into that. And then, you know what? I'm not going to lie. It's all going to start all over again. So July, August, we're going to start the rat race all over again, right? And so I think it's important that you guys understand as an ag teacher, young or old, that you have to set parameters. You have to recharge yourself before you can do anything for anybody else. My wife was a social worker for about 6 years of her life, and one of the concepts that they taught her was how to unplug. I did get an answer for that. They taught her how to unplug and walk away from the job at 5 o'clock. Most of us don't do that, or we can't do that, or we choose not to do that. We choose not to do that. So that was a concept that they had. The other thing that they said, they visualized a bucket, and for every student that you have, you take a dip of water out of that bucket. But if your bucket's got holes in it, you're not, rejuvenating yourself, re-energizing yourself, taking some time for yourself or things for your family, then you're not any good to those other kids. There's nothing to dip out of the bucket. So you have to be, you've got to take care of yourself first and foremost. And I think that's so important, something that we don't actually do enough of. My video didn't pull through, but my whole concept of this is Shrek, right? So ogres have layers. And so the meat and potatoes and onions of this particular presentation comes from this. So we all have layers. Every one of us has a layer, okay? And so where we lay our priorities becomes what layer that we're working on at the time, right? And so the core of the onion here, that's who we are. Without our job, without our family, how do you identify who you are? Okay? And you've got to start there. That has got to be what grounds you and keeps you motivated, self-sustained, all those kind of things. You've got to figure out who you are, right? So for several of us, it's a Christian, right? We got to start with God and start with those things, and from there you're going to span out to the other layers that you have. And actually, one of the ag teachers that I've had a chance to get to know lately actually knows me because of my faith. And there's several in the room that probably wouldn't be the first thing that wouldn't be the go-to. It would be a livestock guy, a pig guy, a judging guy, home site, whatever. There's several different things to pick from, but there's actually one person that knows me because of my faith and recognize that. And that was recharging for me to be able to say that I can be this person as my first layer, okay? My next layer of the onion is going to be family, okay? One of the most eye-opening experiences I had last week at Ag Ed Academy is I had a young lady that's a high school student wanting to be an ag teacher with a struggle of, I don't know if I want to do this because I want to be a mom. And about 17 or 20 years ago, I'd have laughed. I'd have been like, well, you're not cut out for this. But you tell me her priorities are wrong, in the wrong spot. Because if you go back to our onion here, like who we are and then our family, that's going to be the most important thing. My wife would tell you if she wanted me to say this to you guys, like as an ag teacher, as an ag teacher, your spouse is married to your job too. They are connected to your job, whether they like it or not. And if they didn't grow up in it and didn't do it, it's a struggle, it's a challenge to be able to get them to understand why you're gone, why you're spending all this time with somebody else's kids and not your own, right? So just some points to be able to ponder and think about. But at the end of the day, who gets the best of you? Because I can tell you right now that my family probably does not get the best of me. Because when I check in at school, I do my school thing and I leave, school's still on my mind. I can't unplug. I can't pull that away. And then about 9:30 or 10 o'clock when I show up at home, because I've missed supper for the millionth time, you know, you get the talk. You get, you know, why is this important? Why are you doing this? No other job that I know of, that I've been around, has the same type of expectation as an ag teacher does. And so it's all in how you choose to do it, right, Holly? And so, you know, we can sit here and roll over statistics, why we lose good ag teachers, why we're keeping a few, why there's less than, you know, half of our teachers in the career are 10 years or less. And I think sometimes our priorities are out of line. And if we go back to that second layer of family, like, who really gets the best of you? You know what I mean? So I think it's so important. From there, you're a teacher. Depending on where you're at, you've got, like at Moore, we're on several different committees, a healthy lifestyles committee, a school safeties committee. I've never been to more meetings in my entire life than I have been since we've been at Moore. And it's you got voluntold to be on something. Now, it wasn't really a part of your written contract. It said you're supposed to do this. Mowing at the school farm's not a part of your written contract that you're supposed to do, right? So there's things that we have to do that we're obligated to do because it's our job, because in essence, the school district's paying you, writing a check for your salary. So they have a certain set of expectations from you. And it depends on where you're at. Like John's at Elgin where I taught, and it's a big deal to be at Elgin. I mean, they have high expectations, and they want you to win. They don't want you to just go and participate. They expect you to win. And some other school districts are like that. And then there's an example of, you know, the Disneyland program, and they don't expect you to do anything, just to show up and teach class. And so there's not a really good way to measure what you're supposed to do as an ag teacher. So anyway, you've got to define, you know, who you are. You guys, just like me, are sick of looking at three-circle models, right? We're always striving to be like right here in this little dark spot where we're making a combination of all three of these things. I'm going to challenge you with a different three-circle model. So you have a Sharpie, you have a piece of paper, or you have a paper plate in front of you, and I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to back up to that slide. So you guys draw this, okay? Draw this. You're basically you're making your plate into thirds. And if you've done, I don't think anybody's done the Accelerate conference. If you do get a chance to do the Accelerate conference through NAAE, this is one of the things that they go over. And I'm going to share some other things through some books that I've read that seem to help me as well. So your three circles, or your three pieces, are going to be self, family, and career. Okay, so self, family, and career. And then ultimately, this is you, who you are. You know, and which area do you spend the most amount of time? So I want you guys to we're going to take about 5-8 minutes, and I want you to define things that you do in each one of these areas. So write self, write career, write family in those different quadrants on your plate. And then I want you to write that. And if there are things that kind of get close to being the you, write those things closer to the middle. So if you think the career part of what you do, your family, yourself, maybe there's some things that you could just circle those, like kind of do a bubble, kind of draw a line to the things that kind of take that connect, is what I'm trying to say. So like from self to family, if you guys spend time at church, you know, maybe how much time at church you spend, what do you do, how active you are. From a career standpoint, you know, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? What are you striving to do? Does your school district expect you to do certain things? Do you want to? Does the profession put stress and pressure on you to be able to do those things? Does that make sense? So you guys take 5-8 minutes or so, and we'll we'll come back to. Just make it, yeah. So like, as a mom, like, what are your expectations as a mom? What does your family require you or rely on you to be able to do? Does that make sense?
This isn't big enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Depressing. Yeah, when you start kind of going through some of this stuff, it's you start figuring out where your priorities need to go. You're not wrong. You guys can keep working, and we're going to do some sharing. We're going to do some group sharing here a little bit, and I think that's important as well for the Cleavers and the Lastleys, those kind of people to be in a room that have had from different experiences, and even Rose. I'm going to put Rose on the spot. But and I'll start with John. I'll pick on John for a second. But John and I have been good friends for a really long time, and I've got a lot of respect for John, and I think the world of him. But he's got a really good one there, and I think it was on the family one, right?
Right.
So you want to explain a little bit?
Well, my family may look different than others because, I've only ever been married in my career, and I've been at it, this is my 17th year, and it's just me. But my family deal was to do more group things that are not funerals or holidays. It's to be really proactive, to get cousins, aunt and uncles, and you're going to have to force them to do it, unless you've been a big family reunion family, they're going to be like, you want to what? But once a month or, whatever. Part of the reason I came back from Georgia was to be closer to family in Texas, and the Elgin deal was just a really good location.
Right.
And to be more involved in that. So that's really important to me.
And I think, and I would totally echo that. I think even somebody that's married and got kids, and we live, across the pasture from my in-laws. Like most of my family, my personal family are gone. So like all my family are my in-laws essentially. And so even to be able to just find glimpses of time and some flexibility in our careers as ag teachers is tough, and no matter if you live across the pasture or in another state, like that's so hard to be able to do. Now, my ag teacher, one of my ag teachers growing up, is a great friend of mine, and I have a lot of respect for him too. And he is a very successful ag teacher, and he spoke this morning, C.L. McGill, And I think the world of that guy. But I do know situations, and this is not his example necessarily, but I do know a situation of a guy that retired here that my father-in-law and mother-in-law had in school, a guy by the name of Jim Rutger. And Jim was a very, very successful ag teacher, especially in the livestock and swine world here, and was partners with Doc Moppus on pit. I mean, apparently there was one year when they went to the spring stock show and Moore had every champion that was there, like in the 60s. So like he was a big push and did a lot of those things. But you know what? The success that he got as a teacher came at the expense of his family. And so his family, like his 2 kids, directly despised the job that he did. You know what I mean? And so some of us have families, some of us have experienced that, some of us, but just taking the time to step back. Now, we're all on a 12-month contract, and Rose can plug her ears for a second, but like literally, you need to take time. If it's the summertime and that's the time you get a chance to take a break, you need to do that. But I would encourage you to find a once-a-month thing just to unplug a little bit and go do something with your family. Went and played putt-putt golf with my kids last night. That's probably the first time I've done that ever. And one of the best experiences that I got to have. So anyway, I think that's a good one. Cleaver, do you have something on self maybe?
Well, really, I'm a bad example. I was living on my plate. Myself's kind of empty.
Why do you think, like even just for the young teachers that are in the room, why do you think that you don't have much on that area?
Well, part of it is that what I do for myself is often my family.
Yep. I would totally agree. I don't know that anything that I do, and I think maybe the message he's trying to tell us, nothing that I do as an individual, I do for personal gain. Like that's not, everything that I do, I do it for my family. So if we're going to go on a trip, it's not necessarily something for me. It may not be something that I necessarily like, but just the opportunity to be with my family and my kids to be able to do that. And I got to go to Georgia to go judge a show a couple of years ago. I think John was out of town, so I didn't get to see him, but we drove plumb to Savannah because my wife wanted to go to Savannah. She loves the South, and if we could trade places and move down there, she would absolutely love that. But we went to Savannah, and the guy that called to make sure everything was going, he's like, "Hey, is everything all right? Your trip's going well?" And I said, "We're in Savannah." "Well, why are you in Savannah?" And I said, "We don't get to take a family vacation or do anything fun." And this is what she wanted to do. And I had no idea that part of Forrest Gump was filmed in Savannah. We got to go to the little square, that was there. There's little nuggets of different things like that. And I choose not to fly. I'm not afraid of flying or whatever. But you miss out on so many of those little things. Just stopping on the side of the road and there was somewhere that had like pecan and peach ice cream at the little stop. And, there was a place called Miss Stella's somewhere by where we were at. And it was literally just like walking in and having a meal like in the 60s. And it was an all-colored family that worked there, and it was just like a Southern meal. She's like, that's the meal I want to have before I leave this world. Like I want to go back to Miss Stella's, And so just little pockets of time that you can be able to do those kind of things. Rose, tell me about your career.
First thing on here is 24/7. Holy bucket. I mean, it is a 24/7 job. And it's year-round, just something.
It's constant. For you guys that are new teachers in here, this is not a doom and gloom type message. I don't, but here's what I would have loved to had, and John would probably echo this, and I'm sure Justin would too in the back. If I'd have had somebody like me standing in front of you to say, make sure you do this once a month with your family as you start to build what your schedule is going to look like for the year, that would have been a great tool to walk away with. If I could have done that, that'd have been awesome. But you know what? My son that's 13 took his first steps while I was at some guy's pig ranch in Iowa. I'll never get that back, guys. I will never in my entire life be able to buy that opportunity to get that back. And your school system pays you to be there. and our state association expects certain things out of us. You're going to have, in order to fill out for the National Chapter app and your 3-star Superior application, you're going to have to do some things with those kids. But make sure that you're taking care of your own. Take care of your family. That ultimately doesn't matter what job you do, what your career choice is, whether you work at the State Department, or you teach ag, or you're the janitor at the school. Be the absolute best that you can be, but always think about your family. I can't think of how many times in my lifetime I put my job in front of family. I wish I could have gone back. I can't get those hours or days back. You know, for honestly little to no appreciation from the people you were pouring all that time into. Does that make sense? Some of you guys that are older have been teaching for a while. Wyatt, I want you to tell me something about self.
Fellowship is what I wrote.
Okay.
So it's just really important to me wherever I am to be seen as a friend or brother or a supporter, you know, to have a continuous fellowship, because I never want to be in a community where I'm just the ag teacher, and because I feel like there's more to me than that. So spending time with people, you know, whether it's a game night or we, you know, have a few drinks or we go out to eat supper, different people in my community, I want to stay in fellowship.
Okay, I think that's important. Kelby, give me a career one.
Oh, you know, I'm kind of straightforward, and it's simply do my job. You know, while I'm there, try and be the best one that I can be, but kind of like you said this whole time, that's what I've got to figure out how to do also, just like everybody in there. When you leave it there. Don't take it with you.
Don't take it with you. Don't take it with you. Because here's what happens is like when you walk away from your ag building or your school farm or your livestock show or whatever, what do most of us do? We get on the phone to talk about something that's maybe not as important as maybe calling our spouse or somebody in our family and just, hey, checking in, making sure things are going well. But I'm trying to one-up the guy at the county fair, trying to figure out how I can make sure I get it. Got to make sure I get all the electrolytes and them pigs, you know, and I'm on the phone, or I'm trying to figure out stuff that's not important. And I'll tell you, I'm the world's worst, but that right there is what I need to do. I mean, literally, that causes me more problems at home than anything does. Just simple. Anybody got something unique that they want to share that's on their plate, or does anybody want to share something that's on there that's in one of those categories that maybe Justin, do you have some advice for any of us in any range of level of teaching that would be, you know, something to do or not do?
Well, I mean, I raised my kids as a teacher, and you know, we kind of make it sound like it's all doom and gloom, but I really liked my time teaching my kids. I'd say at that time you're not just spending time with everybody else's, you're with your own.
Mm-hmm. And not that that's not an important part of that, because I think it is. I think too that we maybe focus a lot more on the negative side of that. Like we're having, you know, we got 200 kids here. I've got 70 in my personal side of the program.
They can be your best student.
They can.
They really influence a lot of others.
They do. They sure do. But I just, you know, and again, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm trying to hopefully, maybe this is an awakening. This is and this is something that I needed, to where it's like, okay, literally hash out. You got 24 hours in a day. I require 8 hours of sleep, so there's a third of that, you know, and then you're at school for 6-8 hours a day at school teaching class, that amount of time, and then you leave and you got to go pull hair nominations. You got a sick pig. You got this, and then before long it's 9 o'clock, and it's time to go to bed and get back up all over again. So just, I think there's a lot of good things in trying to create some balance. Yep.
When you got small kids and stuff, don't be afraid to load them up.
Take them with you.
I
I do it all the time.
Yeah,
Oh, they love it.
yeah,
They love it. And
Yeah.
my administration is supportive of that. If I have, like I'm going home, I'm taking my wife and kids with me.
yep,
Drive Suburban, yeah, but they're
Yep.
going.
yep. No, I think it's important. Take them when you can. Definitely. Good point there, Brandon. Or Brian, I'm sorry. The thing that I learned probably the most is how to delegate as an ag teacher. Okay? Delegating is and I did on purpose make it the hardest thing that we ag teachers do. Okay? Because Brandon, no, I'm talking about Brandon now.
Oh.
Sorry, Brandon Lewis. I'm gonna pick on Brandon. I'm trying to pick on everybody that I know officially. If I don't know you, then I'm sorry. But Brandon Lewis, you're gonna tell me that you're gonna pass off some medicine to a kid to give a shot, and you hope that that's gonna all get into that pig, and then he's not gonna have any kind of issue.
I'm still pretty, I don't know, this is starting my 11th year, and that's probably the hardest thing I struggle with is in delegating things. And sort of maybe creating myself a lot more work than what's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I've gotten older, and I picked this up actually from teaching with Lance Revis. I don't know, maybe in my earlier years, you know, if we're just talking about like giving a shot or something like that, instead of actually teaching the kid about livestock or how to do that, I would be out there at 11:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever, giving a shot, where Mr. Revis, he teaches them how to do that. So when they have that call, go get this. give it a
Absolutely.
shot. So I'm trying to get better at that, but delegation's hard for me.
I'm sure it's easy for you, Kenzie, right?
Huh?
Delegation?
You can't. I mean, how do I delegate to anybody else that works with me? It won't get done.
It won't, listen, it'll get done, but it won't
No,
get
it
done
won't
to
get
yours.
done.
Well,
You know better than that. It will not get done.
I understand your situation. But the hardest part of this for all of us is it won't get done to your standards. If it doesn't get done, it may get done, but it may not get done to your standards, right? And so I promise you, at year 17 in a 3-teacher program, I still struggle with this too. Okay? I absolutely struggle with trying to delegate something, because I'm telling you, I know exactly it takes me about 2.5 seconds to inject medicine. It takes me about a month's worth of time to teach kids texturing soil. I mean, I know exactly how to get those things done in my time frame, on my time. But if I go, hey, you know what, I'm going to let Rebecca teach those kids how to do this. What am I going to do while I'm just delegating for those things? What are the majority of us going to do in our mind? We're going to go, what? We're still going to stress out that we have assigned her something to do. And it may be great for her. It may be a good challenge that she needs to learn how to do anyway. We're still going to be worrying, she didn't do it my way. I wanted it done my way. It didn't get it. Those are the things that seem to be the biggest struggles for us as ag teachers. I think that's it's a false hope to think that you can delegate something to somebody and it's going to get done to your standards. Okay, unless you know somebody that's just equally as comparable to you, and they're going to put that much dedication into doing something. I think it's so important.
That's what I want to say. I think we do our kids a disservice when I'm the only one that can clip that hog. You know,
Oh,
they're not
yeah.
gonna do it to my level.
Oh yeah.
But then what do? We produce an ag teacher who, hey, I want to be just like my ag teacher. And then they do the same thing, and they get there and was like, I have no idea how to clip a hog
Yep.
because Gus always did it, and not.
Yep, nope.
My ag teacher always did it for me,
Yep.
now I don't know how.
I struggled with that for a really long time, and then it got to the point where, like at Elgin, there's 120 of them you got to do. I ain't gonna do all 120 of those things. Here's the clippers, here's the guards. Hit these spots, and then I'll go back and touch them up if I need to. And be the teacher. Be the one that actually leads that participation activity. You know what I'm saying? Like Lewis was saying, like he learned from Revis. I got those families to where they're. Miss Dunlap has done an awesome job of teaching those families to be independent, and like sending those kids to, livestock camps, show camps, and those kind of things. They can give shots. They can do this without her being there. And I think that's so, so important. A lot of us feel like we got to be the one to do it. If they don't do it, they're not going to get it under the skin right. They're going to break a needle off. X, Y, Z. So very, very good point there, Rose. Getting over a painful experience is much like crossing the monkey bars. You have to let go at some point in order to move forward. That's the hardest thing. I'm going to, like, I would say a challenge for you guys as you walk away, if you're a current teacher or if you're a new teacher. Find something that you can just walk away from. Figure out what that is, whatever is the least important thing that's on your duties list every day, Holly. And, huh? Livestock. Hey, and I mean literally, guys, I would say, I don't know what the stat would be. That's the reason I got into teaching ag. I really did. I can tell you right now, at year 17, that's the least important thing that I do each and every day. Hands down. Hands down. And you know what? It takes away from my kids and the experience that they get, because I'm having to deal with somebody else's problem or whatever the issue is, and I can't be there. I know in my mind I can fix it for my kids in about 30 minutes. I can do whatever I need to do to make sure that we have success. But I'm spending the majority of the time at somebody's place trying to take care of their stuff. So, again, rip the Band-Aid off, let it go. There's some things that are out of our control. About year 7 or 8, I had a guy come in and do a livestock talk, and the light bulb came on. When I go to feeding those show pigs, if they don't all respond, maybe they're not supposed to respond. There's certain things that allow them to enhance and get better, and there's certain things that aren't going to enhance and get better. So you may be spending all this time and all this effort and a whole bunch of money on these additives, and it was never going to work in the first place. So get to a point where you go, hey, listen, we need to probably do the responsible thing and let that one go. Instead of, well, I can just feed it a couple more weeks. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. Because you can try whatever you want to. There's all kinds of, things out there that are going to help you. And then in the end, it's just more time away from what you probably need to be working on in the first place. You know what I mean? Just understand that. There's things that are totally, completely out of your control. So my challenge, my charge for you guys, let's make some goals. Like maybe on the back side of your plate, take this plate home with you. If you eat cake or anything kind of wet on it, you'll never be able to use it again. But take this. I've got mine. It's in my office. I was going to get it out, but I didn't get a chance to do that. But add to this at home. If there's things that are on your plate that you guys have got going on, the whole idea is that at some point you need to figure out what's really on your plate. What's on your plate? What goals do you have for yourself? What's going on in your life? How do people recognize you? What do you want? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? I tell that to my students quite a bit. So just one thing. Just take one thing. If you were to say, hey, I learned at this whole OAETA STAR committee thing in 2 days, what's the one thing you're going to walk away with that you're going to implement? And then I'd say find something that you're going to quit doing. Find one thing that you quit doing that becomes the least important thing on your plate every day. John, what would something like that be for you?
One thing, when we start in the beginning, one thing that I'm going to do. Well, personally, I have always really enjoyed the outdoors. And I don't know if you read it or not, but I grew up hunting and fishing like a lot of people did, and it was very like Midwestern, and just the things that I enjoy to read, the podcasts that I enjoy listening to, they focus a lot on public lands in the West, and I've been to national parks. And finally was just decided, I went to Georgia because I wanted to see how they did it down there. I'm certified in Texas in case I ever want to go, because it's just my nature. I'm like, how do they do it over there? Let's just go check it out. Mm-hmm. And so I found out that in Idaho you can buy a mule deer tag over the counter, and I did some research and found a unit that's in between 2 grizzly bear zones, and talked a buddy of mine into going with me, and in between Tulsa and National Convention, I'm going to spend 2 weeks in the mountains of Idaho trying to kill a mule deer.
That's awesome.
And my ag sales team's going to have to be ready to go to the national contest before we go to Tulsa. But and I talked to Travis and Cassie about it before I did it, and I'm like, this is happening. Because just like all of us, they'll be sitting around, and you probably have things where you're like, man, I should have done this, right? Mm. And I was just at a point where I'm like, it's the wind. I mean, I'm feel like I'm young, but I know that that window is starting to close.
Sure.
And I think 10 years ago, or the first time that I had a team going to the national contest, the idea of something taking me away, I'd have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
We'll be ready. And I'm still going to go.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a good experience. Because that has caused me to do a lot more reading about getting in better shape, like what translates better to this type of physical activity.
Right.
It's just opened just more reading material, more studying. It's expanded kind of my mind and the things that I think about. I kind of have an addictive personality anyway, so it allows me to really go down a rabbit hole. So that's something that I'm going to do. I put in for other hunts and other places too. So that's something that's in my future, because that's, what am I going to leave behind? I don't have anything specific, but I've been able to leave some of those things because I came to a 3-teacher program with 2 really awesome people.
Yeah.
And we just were able to divide and conquer, and that works really well for us.
That's awesome. And I know John, and he does have an addictive personality. Don't let him judge rabbits at your local show. But
I went to that deal yesterday. I could do a better job.
the one he buried won like 6 national shows at my local show that year. Remember that?
But you didn't tell me I was doing any of that till I got there.
I know.
I
My
could have
bad.
read up. I
My
could have
bad.
gone down the rabbit hole.
He would have. He would have done that.
You're like, oh, hey, by the way.
We had enough ribbons. So. No, I think like, and you guys that are young teachers, like what would be a goal of all the things you guys have listened to in the last couple of days, a priority? Taryn, I know you. I'm going to pick on you. Like tell me something that as you get ready to start your career, what is that going to look like?
Career-wise or personal?
Personal-wise.
I would say just to set time, like at least once a week, call a friend from college that you don't get to see all the time anymore. It's easy to get wrapped up in lose friends and kind of forget about them when you don't see them all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm gonna kind of chime in. So on one of these goals, you hear about a lot of ag teachers getting burnt out. And so on my self goal, I said, don't get burnt out before I even get started.
Sure.
Type of thing.
Sure.
Because there's plenty of first-year teachers who have, or young teachers who have been in the profession less than 5 years and they're already out of it.
Absolutely.
So that's something.
You've kind of got to pace yourself, but I mean, I honestly think, like if John was going hunting every year since the time we started teaching 17 years ago, like I think he'd be in a rhythm of doing those things constantly. Now he's kind of discovered this, and it's allowed him to unplug at some point to be able to research and figure out these things. Because, like, first of all, I'm not going to go get in shape to go do that because I'm not near as healthy as he is. So, like, he's got a goal to be able to do that, and there's 20 things that have got to happen before he gets to go to his hunt, you know. So I think that's definitely an important thing there to think about. Rebecca, what's something, I know you're in year 3? 2? So tell me about, tell me like one thing that you've picked up.
I'm talking like personal or career?
For personal.
So, I'm married with 2 kids, 2 under 2. That's fun. So, it's doable for sure for those of you who are younger and potentially want kids. It's doable. It's hard, but my kids love going places. But my husband and I actually just talked about before I became an ag teacher, it was already hard enough to find time for just us 2 since we have kids, and now adding all the ag teacher duties on top of that. So we're gonna try to do like, seems really small, but like a date night every month, because we hardly even get a date night like once a year. And so we're gonna try to do that and see if we can, not that we've fallen out of connection, we just don't talk that much anymore.
Mhm.
It's like, do you have kids? Yes. Okay, cool, see you tomorrow.
That's
like,
the conversation.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
like, do you have kids? Are they good? We're
Yep.
good. All right, cool. Other than that, it's really, we don't have a lot of that connection.
I think somebody back there had date night on your plate too, maybe. I mean, just guys, that's important. Guys and girls, that's important to be able to do those kind of things with your family. Be all in the moment. Okay, this is probably the longest I've not been with my phone. So I want you guys that do know my wife, or if you don't know her, you can text her and let her know that I've probably been away from my phone for about 10 minutes or 15. But be all in the moment. this probably causes more headache at my house than anything, because like we'll be trying to have a conversation, and then, hey, I got this text message from Rose, and I'm trying to address this email all at the same time, and then at some point they get mad and finally walk off, and you've got to regulate those kind of things. I'm reading this book, and I'll tell you about it in just a second, but like they've got their phone set to not get emails after 5 o'clock. Whew, wouldn't that be nice? Not to answer an email after 5 o'clock. It depends on if your national chapter stuff's in to be able to get. And then follow through, right? Because as soon as John shoots that mule deer up there,
Or a black bear, my tag can go either way.
can go either way. If I don't get a text message from that guy, I'm going to be pissed.
It'll be a picture.
Picture. That's what. Yeah, a picture. Look, check out my bear.
Well, I'll pack it out first. It's just a hike in, hike out trip.
Okay. You got time for a selfie, can't you?
Send that picture to all of us.
Yeah.
Some books that are good reads, and I don't read. I'll be honest. If it's not a motivational book, I probably don't read it unless it's something that's ag-related. But I do need motivation. You're going to need motivation to be able to do those things. How to Eat a Frog and Juggling Elephants were my personal favorite ones that I've gotten, and those were books that the Accelerate Conference gives you to do, and they kind of do like you break it down. And so stop procrastinating, get stuff done. I had a good friend of mine when I was at Noble that gave me this Energy Bus book. That's a great one. Figure out what all kind of needs to be on your bus and the people you need to have with you. Energy Vampires. Sometimes they're students, sometimes they're parents, and so that's one of the concepts that are in there, just to try to make sure that you alleviate some of that. This is my newest book that I've taken on, that I read. I've been reading. It's 5 years, How to Be Present and Productive When There's Not Enough Time, and that sounds like it's got ag teacher written all over it. And I'm about 2 or 3 chapters into this thing, and I can't hardly put it down. I'm already changing things that I do because I've only been this far into this book. And one of those things is like, and I'm trying to figure out how to fix my email where I don't get emails after 5 o'clock. Some things I would say, I guess they're right here. If you truly don't have the time to do it and dedicate to it, don't do it. Don't accept it. Okay? If somebody's like, hey, I need you to make 14 other things in the shop for me this week, and you don't have time, tell them you don't have time, right, Holly? We don't have time to get those things done. And they always find the busiest person that they know. The 90-10 rule, 10% of the people do 90% of the work. The 80-20, I can't remember, but it was in the frog book. Sorry, my bad. I didn't get to go back and read that. One of the best things I ever learned how to do is create meetings. Nobody knows what you got to go to. I got a meeting I got to go to at 5 o'clock. Literally. You don't know. They don't know if you got to go. You got a meeting at Sonic to go get yourself some cheese fries or something like that or whatever. When they hear meeting, they're like, "Oh, it's got to be official," right? Create meetings. Literally, create meetings. Hey, I got a meeting. I'm sorry. Date night. That's popped up. Bible study. I know that comes up a lot of times. Definitely get you a weekly planner. Just some things that you can kind of start saying yes and no to. Here's my wife's question for you guys and challenge: who gets the best of you? Who literally gets the best of you? And so, like, if you're pouring into your kids when you get to school and that's part of your job and that's the expectation, then that's fine. Save some energy for when you go home. Save some of the best of you at the end of the day to be able to be at home with those people, or when you get a chance to do those things with your family when you get a chance to. Any questions? You guys got any questions or anything that maybe I didn't include? Some of you guys have been teaching for a while. Do you guys got some points to ponder before we wrap up? Brian? Caitlin, I know you're about, what, year 8, maybe?
Well, one thing, some of you younger guys, and probably single, I know some of us been married before. Your spouse married your job, and if they don't understand it, it's going to be a tough go.
It's tough.
It is tough.
Yep.
There's nothing like, getting divorced and not seeing your kids every day.
Absolutely.
Try to make everything work.
Even at year 17, like I was working on something the other day, my wife's like, I didn't realize that was something you did. That was part of your, is that on your contract that you signed? No, I didn't think so. Okay. All right. Just checking. Caitlin, you got?
Well, I'm kind of the oddball probably in here. I taught for 2 years and then quit, and then I went and worked for PK Equipment for 3 years. Now I'm back and I just finished my 3rd year. So technically, I should have been done for 8 this year.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. But recharged, you're ready to go, ripe and ready?
Try to at least.
Okay. Man, I tell you, outside of those meetings,
I would
Oh.
say, don't set your expectations so high. Whether you're like a new teacher or like old like me, like even when I transitioned schools, I went into this school that I started 2 years ago going, okay, I did all this crap at Luke, now I'm gonna do all this crap at Cashin.
Cashin.
And I just burn out hard, so like,
Yep.
you know, if you screw up and win, yay, we screwed up and win. But don't go in there thinking we're gonna, you know, rock this thing.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
wear yourself out.
Or they're going to ask you to do a presentation, because I had 12 kids win agri-science one year when I was at Noble, and they're like, hey, you and Alan Smith are going to present about agri-science fairs. And I'm like, well, I'll be glad to sit in there to listen to what Alan did. And then it got to my part, and they're like, what did you do? And I said, we made it a class project. Simple. And then there wasn't anybody else that showed up in those areas. So. But anyway, I mean, there was a lot more. I would leave you with this. I try on my phone. I tell my families, my livestock families, and my kids, my students, that anything after 7 o'clock in the evening, I got my phone set on. I mean, anybody else do that? Turn your phone on Do Not Disturb at a certain time? That's probably one of the best tools I've ever learned, is do that. Have an expectation, let them know that. And then also tell them, like, hey, if you're having an emergency, text it to me. Let me know what's going on. And then I'll determine what we need, like what steps need to be taken care of at that point. So like if you have a sick animal and it's one of those things where like he's limping, I don't have to necessarily get out of bed to go take care of that thing. But if he's like sick and dying, I might need to get hold of the vet. I mean, we may have, there may be some different things. Let you be the one that makes that decision and call on those type of things. But anyway, try to set a Do Not Disturb. I'm going to figure out how to do this email thing and shut my email off at a certain time. But that was just some really good pieces that are in there. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. I don't know if you got any other questions. I'll be happy to visit with you guys afterwards, and appreciate it. Thank you.